we can kind of get our heads away from some of that stuff, because it's not good to be buried in it too long. But this week we're looking at, to say it broadly, where state, medical, federal authorities can, should not be able to exercise requirements over an individual's medical decisions. And so that wasn't a good way to say it. What's better is, should we have required vaccinations in this country, in this state, in this town? Should we be able to force medically ill people to take and stay on medication so that they do not have episodes where they could cause harm to either themselves or others? Should we be able to force parents to provide the recommended medical care for their children? Basically, where is that line where a medical authority or a government authority can make decisions about an individual's medical decisions or such? This has gotten a lot of press lately, both in the forced medication bill that came up in Vermont. I want to say it was 2 years now. It comes up again and again. And then the vaccination question, which kind of has an ebb and a flow to it. And to be very honest with you, that ebb and flow has a lot to do with outbreaks of preventable diseases. So I remember the whooping cough outbreak in Vermont. I want to say, I forget what year that was, maybe 2012, 2013. That was scary because I had a son at the time who we couldn't give the whole series to. You know how whooping cough comes in 2 or 3 shots, and he was so young that he was obviously not vaccinated completely. And so that was actually, as parents, we were a little nervous about that one. And when you work in a school or you're a nurse, you are just totally exposed to all kinds of cooties. So, you know, I was always washing my hands and bringing and making sure I washed my hands when I got home and all of that. And then the spring of 2015, we had the measles outbreak in Disneyland out in California, and that caused a national discussion about vaccinations again. And so you really see this this dichotomy between individual choice, sometimes religious freedom, and then medical decisions. And here's one of the lines is, when that decision could potentially impact others. And so that's kind of where I think it gets into a gray area. So in vaccinations, there is something called herd immunity, which means if the general population goes below a certain percentage in terms of how protected that population is, there is a chance that a preventable disease could take a foothold. And then, of course, we have people who cannot be vaccinated for medical reasons or because they're little. You know, under 12 months, under 24 months, you're usually not fully vaccinated. So you rely on the herd immunity. Basically, that disease is not going to take a foothold in your community to protect those vulnerable individuals. So if enough of the community says we're not going to do this, you basically have holes. And then these people who don't have the choice to become protected are vulnerable because of another person's choice. Same thing with forced medications. So if someone who is mentally ill and has psychotic episodes and violent tendencies goes off their medication, do we as a society have a right to say, no, you can't. You have to go on that medication, because when you're having these psychotic episodes, you've been known to hurt people. Or you have the potential, you know, for some reason, I don't know, a psychology reason, but you have these tendencies in the past. So when we look, we just had a horrible situation here in Maine. A transgender person who had a very troubled past randomly decided that he wanted to kill people, went into a grocery store and stabbed a woman, and admitted it right there. Very much a troubled individual, and the first thing he said was, "I'm off my meds. I did this." So should have he been had that choice to go off his meds? A woman's dead because of it. And then, remember I promised that there wouldn't be anything disturbing? There is a disturbing thing. And you don't have to read it if you don't want to. But there's a couple of things on basically religious exemptions from medical treatment or parental refusal. So there are some faiths which say they're not going to accept some forms of medical treatment. Jehovah's Witnesses do not accept blood transfusions between individuals. And then other more fundamentalist kind of leanings will say, well, no, we're not going to do this. We're going to let our faith heal. And there's a horrible case study there, but then there's a more neutral kind of overview of it as well. And that, again, you have the parent making the decision for a child. The child is not of the age that they can make that decision, so the parental decision is impacting the child. Does the state or the doctors or the medical establishment have the right to go in and say, you cannot make this decision because you're harming this person? And yes, that would go against your religious freedom. So, you know, all of these things, you kind of, once you cross that line, does society, whether it's legal, medical, communal, whatever, have the right to say, no, you don't have autonomy to make medical decisions in this case? So those are some of the questions. Oh my God, I talked so long again. Some of the questions we're looking at this week. Hopefully the forums will, you know, at least allow you to kind of find your own path to this very general theme, and you'll be able to do something creative.